Today, in Algebra 1, we learned how to solve inequalities by multiplying and dividing. We're going to start with how to do this if the things that we are multiplying by or dividing by are positive. For example, number 1. If I have 3x is greater than 27, let's make that 27 negative. If I ask myself the question, what is happening to x? The answer would be that it is being multiplied by 3. The opposite of multiplied by 3 is to divide by 3, so we're going to do that to both sides of our equation. When we do, this first side will cancel out, and I will have x is greater than negative 27 divided by 3 is negative 9. And so that is my answer. The reason I'm calling this a positive group is I would divide it by a positive number, positive 3. Let's do another one. Example 2. 2/3 r is less than 6. Okay, r is being multiplied by a fraction. When we multiply by a fraction, remember the inverse is to multiply by its reciprocal. So I'm going to flip that fraction so that it's 3/2. I'm going to do that to both sides of my equation because what I do to one side, I do to the other. On the first side, the 2's will cancel and the 3's will cancel, and I will be left with r is less than, and now 6 times 3 is 18, divided by 2 is 9. If you're not comfortable dividing or multiplying by fractions, you could always do that in your calculator using the parentheses and the division key. Okay, part B for today. Let's look at what we would do if we were multiplying or dividing by a negative. So this is the negative step. The important thing here is if you are multiplying or dividing by a negative, if that's occurring, if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, you flip your sign. Okay? Now, I put some underlines under the word by because even if there's a negative in the problem, that doesn't necessarily mean to flip the sign. It has to be what you're multiplying by or what you're dividing by for you to need to flip the sign. Let's look at some examples of that. Example number 3. Negative 8x is greater than 72. If you ask yourself what's happening to x, the answer would be it's being multiplied by negative 8. Since it's being multiplied by a negative, we're going to divide by a negative. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8. On the first side, they cancel, and I have x. On the second side, I do 72 divided by negative 8, which is negative 9. And because I divided by a negative, I flip my sign. So the answer is x is less than negative 9. You may be noticing that we're not graphing today. It's not because we couldn't do that if we wanted to. It's just not the focus of today's lesson, so we're not going to do that piece. I think you should feel comfortable with that by now that you could do that on your own if I asked you to. Example number 4. Negative 3 is less than or equal to x over negative 5. X is being divided by a negative number, so that the opposite would be to multiply by that same negative number. We cancel those out. On this side we have x. On the other side, negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And I flip my sign because I multiplied by a negative. So 15 is greater than or equal to x. Now in class today, some people were a little confused by this problem because we left the variable on the right side. And in previous lessons, we've talked about moving that to the other side so it'll be easier to do your graph. So if you wanted to do that, x is less than or equal to, again, we're flipping everything, would also be a perfectly good answer. These two things mean exactly the same. So if you were going to graph, I would suggest doing it this way so that it's easier to tell which way to shade. Let's look at one last example, number 5. Negative 4.25 is greater than 0.25h. Okay, in this problem, I'm being multiplied by 0.25. The inverse would be to divide by 0.25. On that side, it would cancel. On the other side, negative 4.25 divided by 0.25 is 17, negative that is. And I have h over here. And because I divided by a positive, I do not flip my sign. Just did that one to help you see the difference, once again, between when I am and when I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. If you have any questions, be sure to come see me in tutorials. But the assignment that goes along with that is A10. And it's page 183, numbers 18 through 36, and do the evens only, please. Good luck, and let me know if you have questions.